Hello and welcome to Movies and Tea. I'm your host always, Elwood Jones, and joining me of course is my co-host, the one and only Miss Kimilo.
Hello.
Tonight our season-long look at the art of the creature feature continues as we reach 1980 and with Alligator. Here we see the creature feature really becoming the art form as it hits a real peak around this era with the studios all still wanting to cash in on the Jaws trend, but here now they're really sort of managing to hone in on what makes the creature feature formula so special, as in find scary beast, put in area with plenty of food sources, and find strapping hero to dispatch of said beast. Alligator, as it released in 1980, most noteworthy for starring Robert Forster, an actor who I've become weirdly obsessed with since his passing. I know a lot of you kids probably know him out there as being in the Breaking Bad finale. But we talked about him previously when we talked about Jackie Brown. But Kim, I mean, obviously, opening thoughts on this one. I mean, obviously, Alligator is one of my personal highlights of this season, so I was very interested to see what you made of this one, because this one, as I said, it's a full-blown creature feature. It sort of fits more into the mode than the films we've seen previously, like The Birds and Them, and even like Kingdom of the Spiders. It's got a lot more sort of rhythm to it. But what did you make of Alligator?
Well, I mean, Alligator right away is, we had the discussion last week where I was talking about how the previous stuff is more everyday creatures. Well, not, if you lived in the desert, then tarantulas are. But, not for me, obviously. But, I mean, it's just the fact that alligators has a reputation of being more dangerous. So, right away, the creature feature here fits more into kind of what you would expect from, say, shark films, the type of feeling of threat. And then you have this kind of story where Alligator is about, a oversized alligator. So that kind of has its own threat as well. I mean, I thought it was pretty fun. There were some, it's still the same things, I think, that has issues where, you have this, it's the time it was made, I guess. So you have this, kind of misogynistic type of character, side character, I guess, which I had messaged you about when I was watching it. And then there was, you have this kind of disposable romance, whatever side plot that you want to call it. But I mean, those things aside, I think the film does a really good job. At least there's a lot more action going on here. There's some literal, alligator attack starts right away, basically. And,
oh yeah, waste no time at all. Just in this one.
Yeah, it starts right off the bat. You have one, and then basically you have kind of an idea of where this alligator is coming from right from the start, and basically you kind of see what happens afterwards.
Yeah. Well, the film, as you pointed out already, we open in 1968 with a little girl purchasing a baby alligator from a tourist trap while her family's on vacation in Florida. After they return home to Chicago, the little girl's father has one of a drunken rant and promptly flushes the alligator, who the girl would name Ramon, and it ends up in the city sewers. Now, 12 years later, the alligator has somehow survived, feeding on discarded pet carcasses which have been injected with growth hormone from the local lab who are doing various experiments, and it's now grown to enormous size of 36 foot monster that's now preying on anyone who's stupid enough to lurk in the sewers. And it's down to Robert Forster's beat cop, David Madsen, who is himself working through some issues. He's got a reputation as a partner killer after his partner died in a botch hotel heist. At the same time, he's got a lot of he's very world weary. He's got concern about his hair loss, and he's teamed up with a female reptile expert called Marissa, here played by Robin Riker, who with the pair trying to convince the authorities that there is something lurking in the sewers, and more importantly find a way to stop the giant beast before it goes and consumes everyone in Chicago. The film itself is directed by Louis Teague, who's another graduate of the Roger Corman Film School of Filmmaking. He earned his sort of stripes, really. He did editing for Cockfighter. He was a second unit director and assistant editor on Death Race 2000. He did editing for Crazy Mama, and he also did the Avalanche sequence for Avalanche. And it was here that he really sort of learned, like many people who work for Corman, the idea of how to really work every nickel in your budget, because Corman's School of Filmmaking was basically you get a bunch of kids hungry to make films out of film school, give them a small ass budget and a script and send them on their way. And it's here that we got the likes of Joe Dante, we got Martin Scorsese, we got James Cameron. It sort of goes on and on, all these like luminaries who just got their break for Roger Corman's New World Pictures. And Teague's first film, he was also through New World Pictures, Lady Red in 79, with this being his second. And I have to say that this is probably a much stronger picture, and it's one that I actually, for whatever reason, I ranked really lowly when I was looking at my Letterboxd score, but for this time around I really actually enjoyed the hell out of this one. So maybe the first time I went in with super high expectations for this film, and second time around I just sort of had my expectation, I knew what I was sort of getting into, and certainly was excited to see Robert Forster doing his thing again. So, but as a, you know, with the actual sort of like how the film sort of plays out, I mean, how did you find the pacing of this film, Kim? Because obviously when we looked at Kingdom of Spiders, we had that problem where the first hour was just tedious, and then it got good in the last half hour. But how did you find the pacing for this one?
I think the pacing was pretty decent. I mean, when you think about this one, it like I said before, basically you get your alligator attack right away, so you already know about the the lethalness of the creature itself, the unpredictable nature of it, right? But when you fast forward it, you kind of have this, like, we already know that it's an alligator because we see all these attacks that are going on. But the audience knowing more than the police or the investigators in this one kind of plays really well in the movie itself. So I think because of that, the pacing works well enough, because now you have them trying to deduce what's going on and all these things that the conversations that they're having, and you have a little bit of I guess disbelief and stuff like that, which usually happens in these films when you start the impossibility of, I don't know, a giant beast, even though they've seen it with their own eyes, type of thing.
It follows a lot of those that lot of framework set out by Jaws, really. I mean, obviously we look at Sheriff Brody in Jaws. He's the local town cop who's trying to convince everyone there's a giant shark and the authorities don't want to know. And here we see the same with Forrester's David, who's the cop trying to convince everyone there's a giant giant alligator, should I say, lurking in the sewers, and of course nobody wants to know until it's completely too late and it's out on the street. You throw into this, we got some real interesting casting. I mean, his boss is here played by Michael Gazzo, who you probably remember from The Godfather Part 2 with his weird raspy accent, which makes it really bad because he seems to have like a set pitch that he can reach, and there's a number of scenes where he's expected to shout and it just seems he can't quite get it up there. We also get the most random ass character in this with the big game hunter Colonel Brock, played by Henry Silva, who has to be like one of the most random like directing choices ever. Just this random big game hunter wandering around the city and treating it like he's on a big game hunt as he hooks up with a bunch of youths. And treats them like they're like local tribe or something.
That character was really, really annoying. Like right off the bat, he was a pain, right?
Yeah.
He was just like a misogynistic, attention-seeking. Like you just, like, I don't know. You just don't really want to back this guy, and usually characters when they show up like this in any type of creature feature, they have that they're not going to make it out. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, of course.
Because they're like they seem to know it all. They're the experts, but obviously, usually these type of experts who are way over the top and try to do this for fame and whatnot it never ends up in a good way.
We also have there's some decent side plots here. I mean, we obviously have the local tycoon who's been funding all these legal growth experiments at the lab and wants to cover up everything that's going on. We got the obnoxious reporter who's basically spends a lot of time harassing David, and especially constantly keeps picking on him for the fact that his previous partner got killed in that botched hotel heist. And again, we have this the necessary romance between David and Marissa, which is just kind of weird. I don't know what you made of it. It was not as weird as last week's one, where we obviously had Shatner getting it on with his brother's ex-wife, but this one's got some. I don't know if he was just like really sure of himself, or was just got a really unique pickup technique.
I swear, like, these things happen out of nowhere. They always pass me. Like, I didn't even know when it happened, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're going on a date, but am I gonna, get some action tonight type of thing? And I'm just like, what is this conversation? What is this? What is going on? And I was like, when did this happen? Did I miss it? Like, did I fall asleep for, 5 minutes?
It just seemingly comes out of left field, and then the fact is sort of like, yeah, well, what's the point of us going out somewhere to come back here? We might as well do things now. I mean, for instance, the fact that Forrester basically hates wearing a shirt, like, for a good portion of this movie. So, in the same way that Elliot Gould can, like, light a match off any surface in The Long Goodbye, Forrester just seems to, like, any occasion to take his shirt off in this movie, he just seems to like grab it with both hands. Which, is good. I mean, he's got that 80s sort of like tough guy build rather than the chiseled physique that we have now with the action heroes. It's sort of like, working man fit, which is a little more attainable than what Jason Statham's got going on.
I don't know what to say.
Okay, well, we'll just move on from that.
No, I'll say something. I was thinking about something before.
What do you think of 80s fitness? Again, just like, do you prefer your men a little more rugged, or do you prefer, like, as I said, the more modern look when it comes to your action types?
I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on the charisma of the character more than anything, or like the actor himself.
Yeah.
I don't really have, like, it's not like I sit around looking at, oh, hey, Arnold Schwarzenegger is so hot, like, I don't think that. I think he's like, I think it's a little, when you're built to a certain size, it gets a little scary. Like, it feels unnatural.
It's the thing, really, when you look at, like, those Stallone and Schwarzenegger pictures from, like, the 80s, and they're with these, like, dainty model types, and it's like, it just feels really weird watching them with, like, normal women. Because they're, like, so built up, and you have these tiny women that they're always with, and it's sort of like, this just seems really weird for some reason. And he was like...
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think, like, like, I'm fine with, like, I think when you think about what looks more natural, like, yeah, Jason Statham and even if you look at, like, Vin Diesel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That they look fine. I mean, even, I think maybe The Rock is, obviously The Rock comes from a wrestling background, so he's definitely bigger. But he still looks normal enough, But... when you talk about other, I do think that when you do films like this, you do need to have more of a rugged type of feeling.
Yeah.
Because they're not like James Bond, you don't come out of a fight and then you look like nothing happened to you.
It's it's just weird, like, now when you watch, like, anything, like, you'll watch, like a drama series and you have, like, the lawyer type, but he'd be completely ripped. And it's sort of what I like about the 1780s cinema, because people weren't just ripped then. They were just sort of like, maybe lift a little weights. Just, they look like they can hold themselves in a fight, but they're not, as I said, not working the glamour muscles, as we say.
I guess.
Now, obviously, when a key point to any good creature feature is obviously the gore quota, and I think for myself, this one certainly delivers. We get a lot of bitten off limbs, which is always cool, and we also get a bit of childhood trauma as a child is thrown into a swimming pool, which the alligator's lurking in, which I have to say is still really shocking. How did you your feelings on the gore in this one? Did it deliver for yourself, or?
I think it did. I think for, obviously this is an 80s film, so a lot of the aging of it is not too great.
Yeah.
But I think overall there is a sufficient amount of it, because there is a lot of people who get the body count is pretty high. Let's put it that way.
It does, so, especially
surprisingly, a lot of people are going into this sewer. And that's very weird, because I don't really think that many people go into a sewer on a normal day. But apparently that's what happens.
It seems to be where you just go to, like, discard of things that you don't want to, like, throw in the trash like a normal person. Like, we've got the pet shop owner who's got, like, this sidelining kidnapping dogs for the lab. And he's, like, disposing of all these, like, test corpses down in the sewer, which was just insane. And this obviously has led to this giant crocodile. Alligator even. God, I gotta stop saying that, because there's a world of difference between the two. Don't ask me what it is, but I just know there is a difference between the two.
Size is one of them.
Thank you. So, want to take a gamble on anything else that's different?
I think it's also the water that they live in. Okay. I think one of them, isn't it one of them freshwater and one of them is saltwater or something? I don't know. I'm not super well versed in crocodile versus alligator. I had read about it once, but I don't remember it. So.
Also, apparently you can use an alligator as a speed bump, as we find out in a riveting boat chase sequence, which I have to say that for like a group of police officers, they were real gung-ho. They were like a bunch of gung-ho rednecks. It's sort of like, oh, we found the alligator. It's just like, let's hurl around this river at like full speed with enough artillery to, to supposedly get the job done. And yet we have this wonderful sequence where the speedboat hits the alligator and like gets launched into the air before being blown up, which I just thought was good. But the real sort of highlight of this one is when the alligator gate crashes a wedding party, which leads to not only like some incredible massacres. We get to see people launched through the air, including a guy into a wedding cake. We also get to see the alligator just go absolutely apeshit on a car for no apparent reason. I don't know what that car did to the alligator, but he was pissed.
Maybe he had a sixth sense that the person inside the car was the reason why he was so big.
Oh yeah, damn you for making me so big.
All the chemicals you put inside of me. Exactly. It was really the movie trying to be like, this is karma, basically.
Yeah. It is a real sort of standout sequence. I go back and forth like whether that or like the swim pool sequence is my favorite moment of the film, but it's funny as well the fact that this tycoon's such an asshole that he locks his sort of cohort outside of the car, and this crocodile's like, it's like it's on the other side of the lawn, and yet somehow it magically sneaks up on this guy. You could have walked faster than this thing moves. Like he's there trying to get in the car. It's sort of like you could have walked out the gate and not like had anything to do with it. You didn't even have to run. It's so busy like attacking like rich society types and that. So
yeah, basically like that sequence was a little bit like illogical in the sense that I get that you couldn't like the tycoon locked the mayor out basically.
Yeah,
but at least he could have left. Like. A bunch of people were running anyways to leave. So it felt unnecessary. If anything, you could have even like crawled on top of the car and then jumped off or something when the alligator would, inevitably start breaking the car.
Oh yeah. That's a good plan. I mean, it's kind of like, it's one of those key things that would sort of be introduced as the genre evolved itself, that you have to have the massacre sequence, which then leads us into this sort of big final showdown sequence. And With Jaws, I mean, obviously you got the attack on the pond, in like, and we see it again in like Piranha 3D, where we got like the big massacre sequence there, which then leads us into that big call to arms sequence. So it's, I mean, I would, the film as a whole, I think it was a really fun romp. I think it's certainly one of the highlights of the season we've had so far. I mean, I don't know about yourself, Kim.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we're working through the decades, right? And it's, so far, most of our films, I think, have been pretty similar, except for, I would say, Birds. Birds is more like, because it's Hitchcock,
yeah.
You have that building, which is more on, wasn't so much on horror as it was on kind of like a sinister suspense type of thing. So it had a little bit more of kind of like a brewing type of tension, I guess. Where the other two was more, the plots were fairly similar, except, the creatures were different. But Alligator is an entirely different beast, because your beast itself is bigger now. I mean, not to, crap on giant ants, but I mean, giant ants in the 50s or something was it aged even worse than this one, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So but I mean, like, Alligator has, it helps the fact that there aren't a ton of alligator / crocodile films that are available even till today. It might be just my problem, because I'm not super well versed in any other creature features than, shark films are my thing.
No,
I don't watch a lot of other creature features. So,
I'd say you're right. I mean, there's the crocodile for some reason, and the alligators as well. They're very underutilized. I mean, obviously you've got the crocodile that they feed all the bodies to and eaten alive. We had a couple of like TV movies, like, I mean, you got the TV movie follow up to this one, Alligator 2, The Mutation, which is just awful. Released in like 91 as a TV movie. You had another couple of TV movies that, I think both called Crocodile, which were again awful. I think we have to, it's not until we get Rogue and like Blackwater that, these movies start getting good, and then more recently Crawl.
Which we'll be looking at later in the season.
Yeah. But when it came to shark movies, they just churn those out.
Well, yeah, I mean, shark movies is kind of like a natural predator, I guess. Like, everybody can kind of relate to it.
Yeah.
And it has, obviously, nowadays, there's so much research in saying how sharks are not really as much of a predator as these movies make them out to be. But at the same time, it's the same thing for any creature feature, right? I think that, if you don't bother nature's not gonna come and bother you, basically. So it's kind of like, if you walk into a tropical rainforest and everything in there wants to kill you, and you walk in and something kills you, it's not really like they're dangerous. They're just being them,
territorial.
Yeah. You walked on someone's turf. What do you want, right?
Yeah.
If you jump into water with shark in it in Australia, well, the possibility of getting eaten by a shark is high, right? So what can you say? You can't really be, hating on it. So that's the main thing, I think. Like, I don't know. I mean, going back to this film, I really do think that alligators and crocodiles, I really would be down to watch more of them, because there is a lot of potential here for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at movies like, what was Lake Placid? I mean,
that's
Lake
true.
Lake Placid was decent also. I mean, it was just, there were little issues with it, obviously. But I and I don't really remember a lot of Lake Placid. I watched it a few years back, but it's the same. I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just I haven't seen a creature feature with alligators other than Crawl that I think is very memorable in that sense, that I think, I don't know what I'm looking for type of thing. Like, maybe it's just because it's one thing, maybe it's because of the age of the film that watching it now, it kind of loses a bit of the appeal. And it also doesn't help that I think that when you watch Alligator, there are a lot of parallels to Jaws. That you kind of feel like people are really banking on this Jaws type of thing. And I don't know. I mean, I've been contemplating a lot on these creature features and that sort of thing. Especially, I don't know. I know you watched it also. It was after the documentary Voir, and their episode about creature features, and you kind of like being able to pick up what made Jaws, and how people are banking on the wrong thing basically. And sometimes, like when I evaluate movies now, I kind of, you kind of think back to the movies that's been done, especially creature features, and you think about, what's the difference between what made Jaws a success and, other than Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Spielberg obviously brings that sort of, Spielberg magic to proceedings, but I think what made Jaws so successful is that it was also about people.
Yeah.
As well as, the giant shark, and I think the different elements that went into Jaws. I mean, obviously we have Brody and his relationship with his wife and the town. It all feels so real. We also have the sharks attacks, which are really good, and we've got the John Williams score, which is just the shark has its own theme. So he constantly teases it out, and then we get into the third half, and it suddenly becomes the adventure movie, and we're on Quinn's boat and we're going hunting the shark. So it's I think with this one, it comes to the real sort of closest to replicating that formula. I mean, obviously, when you look at the format here, I mean, the fact we get so much sort of dedicated to Robert Forster's character, and the fact that he has all these sort of qualms. I mean, we said already. I mean, he's got concerns about the fact he's losing his hair, that he's still haunted by the loss of his partner, and the fact that he manages to lose another partner rather quickly in this when he has his first encounter with the alligator in the sewers, and it eats a young cop.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is that when we look at Alligator, it works in the sense that while I mean, we laugh at the whole romantic angle being sudden, the characters here are individually, they do have their weight, and they also kind of link things together. So, not only does Madison have backstory, his character has a little bit more loss and character building here, which kind of guides his character a little bit more. We also have Marissa, who we get to realize, it's not, super deep to figure out or anything, but it's her baby alligator that was flushed down the toilet, which turns out to be this massive alligator that is now, I don't think she realizes it, but because she believes that, that it died and then it was flushed down the toilet. But at the same time, that's a connection that you have as to how the alligator got into the sewers. So even how it got there is drawn, is kind of set out for you at the same time. And behind all this, you also have this, the evil corporation, the pharmaceutical company trying to do things that are bad, and the government, which is being, trying to hide the secrets of the that sort of thing, and you have all this sort of stuff that's brewing in the background, which kind of builds these characters, and even if they're short-lived, and the body count is there, they kind of, a lot of people who had died, other than the civilians, a lot of people that were attacked actually were pretty bad people. Except for, obviously, like I said, other than the alligator crashing the wedding and then eating a maid and then hanging in a pool and then getting a child, those things were sad. They were kind of traumatic to watch.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was a lot of people, the characters that were flowing through the main plot itself that really kind of deserved the end that they had. And, I think even one thing that was really fun was that they used this random sequence of this guy that's trying to bomb the police station. And it's just you end up using that segment and that element there to be something that's used at the end. And I think that that's kind of really smart also, in terms of just clever story writing in that sense, where you're using the little bits that you're putting in as kind of a foreshadowing to the ending, and there at least the thought was there.
The film would also have an actual game to go with it, so you can play the tabletop game. Where you spin the spinner and feed the gator. It'll be stuffed sooner or later. Feed it tiny too much food, it's your snapshot in a furious mood, and then you're out. You lose. Too bad. It's fun to make a gator mad. Avoid being the one to make the alligator snap his jaws by carefully choosing whether to feed it more food or try and take food from its open mouth. Currently rated 6.0 on Board Game Geek.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because I don't know if you've ever seen those. I don't know if I see it in like Chinese variety shows. I don't know if it's a thing that exists here.
Okay.
Because I don't walk in like toy sections anymore. but like there's like these little alligator games, like these crocodile or alligator games, and what you do is you press the teeth down. In order.
Crocodile Dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
then like it would snap shut on you, right? Isn't that like kind of a easier version of the board game?
This one seems more like Buckaroo, as in it's got the mouth and you like put the things into it, and it's obviously weighted spring. I could never beat Buckaroo. I enjoyed it, but as I said, it's just one of those games I was never sure like the trick to mastering Buckaroo. So, but no, there's a number of like these films that have board games inspired by them, and it's kind of amusing when you see some of the ones which actually got film versions. Jaws got one as well. If you go on eBay, you can find yourself a copy of the Alligator tabletop game as well. So yeah, that was Alligator from 1980. As I said, it would be followed by the TV movie in 1991, Alligator 2: The Mutation, which was just awful, and basically just had the same plot as the first one, despite none of the characters returning, and an albino crocodile. So if that does anything for you and you want to see it shot on horrible film stock, just go hunt that one down. As a director, though, Lewis Teague would go on to contribute further to the creature feature genre, as he would go on to direct Cujo, which I have to say stands up really well. It changes the ending of the book, but it's still really, really good. And he would also work on Cat's Eye as well, which is another Stephen King adaptation, as well as the sequel to Jewel of the Nile with Romancing the Stone in 1984. And then from there he went on to direct Navy Seals, which is probably the most popular film to be on. If you worked in Blockbuster, it would be the film that everyone always wanted to rent for whatever reason. Definitely go check it out. It's just got a new re-release on Blu-ray, so it's very easy to get a hold of. But if you haven't done already, please do hit the like and subscribe button wherever you happen to listen to the show. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can also check out our blog, which is movesandteapodcast.wordpress.com, and check out our full archive episodes, including all our previous episodes, and also our Friday Film Club, where every Friday myself and Kim both pick a film to recommend to yourselves. Sometimes it's a theme, sometimes it's not. Either way, there's a chance for us to explore more of the movies that we like. But Kim, what's next upon our jaunt through the creature feature genre?
Yes, we are moving to 1984 and watching Wild Beasts.
Yep, the Italians give their take on the creature feature genre as PCP gets into the water supply at the local zoo, sending all the animals mad in a creature feature that boasts not one but many, in fact a whole zoo of wild beasts going on the rampage in a film which I'm also really excited to show you, Kim. So that's coming up on our next episode. But until then, thank you as always for listening. Thank you to my host Kim, and we will be back next time to talk about wild beasts. But until then, good night.